Welcome back to the Backyard Professor videos. This is our windmill projects up here, up above my house. That mountain right there, my house is on the other side of that mountain. I'm out here at the Rybee Reservoir Resort. Just doing some filming, showing you a little bit of the country. And of course, I'm still talking about DNA in the Book of Mormon. I always like to share as much as I can. Let me see if I've got this camera adjusted right. Yeah, that's okay. I could go a little higher, couldn't I? Okay. I got through page 3 of Meldrum and Stephen's book on Who Are the Children of Lehi, discussing this issue of DNA in the Book of Mormon. And I'm going to go on. They give some hypotheses of different approaches to how we can discuss this DNA and the Native Americans. They say this third hypothesis, which proposes that a small influx to the Native American population was of Middle Eastern origin, specifically ancient Israelites, which is a hypothesis, if we accept the Book of Mormon, is probably the hypothesis we LDS are stuck with. This is more problematic, and it may not be plausible. It may not be testable, he says. Why? Because the genetic trace of the remnant of a small population introduced into a much larger population may or may not be detectable, let alone identifiable. Detection of such a link would depend on whether any identifiable distinct genetic markers of the immigrant population was transferred to the much larger resident population, and not only just transferred, but the question is, have these markers remained in the surviving population in sufficient frequency to be detected? Well, that's a lot to ask for, and quite frankly, we may not be able to do that. But simply because, and we haven't done it so far, but that is a proof against the Book of Mormon. We're only in the beginning phases of DNA research. I can't emphasize that enough. I'm willing to make a bet right now, just like you remember back in the 60s and 70s, the big scientific whoop-de-doo against the Book of Mormon was the Bering Strait theory. All peoples came across from the north, from Siberia, over the Bering Strait, down through Alaska and Canada, into North and South America. And nobody came by ship. So, of course, the Book of Mormon was proven false through that. Science destroyed the Book of Mormon. Why did we continue believing in the Book of Mormon? And there's probably some people who left the church over that and decided to disbelieve in the Book of Mormon. Well, now what do they do today? Because today there is a growing corpus of scientists, non-LDS and LDS, who have shown that there really were some people who made it over here to America by ship. Interestingly enough, the ancient Chinese also. In fact, they were probably the more numerous. Now that's interesting. So, did the Siberian Strait theory refute the Book of Mormon? Of course not. We just didn't have enough information. We're not saying that nobody came over that way. We're saying people could have come over that way, but people also could have come over the oceans. That's a very plausible scenario these days. Several anthropologists are discussing that. My suspicion is that the information we have on DNA at this point is very interesting, and it's getting better all the time. But what DNA science says about genetic population groups, I seriously suspect in 10 years it will be different. It will be more refined, and it will also be broader and deeper and wider. It will be more inclusive of everyone who they can test. Right now, all they do is sample populations. And these guys discuss that also. In a population of 35,000, they'll sample, say, 350. Folks, that's only 1%. You can't come to a hard, fast conclusion with just 1%. That can't be done. It is physically impossible to extrapolate from such a meager sampling. And notice it's still 350 people you have to sample and test. I mean, that takes work, that takes money, that takes a crew, that takes a coordination. This may not be as simple as just, hey, everybody line up and give us your DNA. So we have to be careful about coming to fast, hard conclusions. That would be my argument. And then the inherent difficulty of finding the marker genes, if they survived, especially considering when a smaller population fused into a larger population. They're just trying to be rational and logic with understanding. Is there a chance we could even have this kind of a test for the Book of Mormon? There's honestly a chance that we may not. This isn't us trying to present a problem to forestall people to stop believing in the Book of Mormon. This is basically inherent within the nature of the reality. And it's important to understand. One or more relatively small populations now extinct or genetically overwhelmed in the gene pool of the Western Hemisphere could have survived or could have existed, but they may no longer be evident. This is another issue about DNA. Once it's in a population, does it remain there throughout the long vistas of time? Not necessarily. We have found that through modern testing, genes can disappear through time. The limitations on the potential for data collection and detection mean that some hypothesis of North American origins, of Native American origins, simply cannot be tested by DNA research, although other avenues of investigation, such as linguistics and archaeology, may contribute some insights into this, of course. That's why we do an interdisciplinary approach. No one single discipline is ever going to disprove anything any more than it's going to prove everything. It all works together and coordinated. Given the assumptions of a small immigrant colony living in a limited geographical area among a large indigenous population, the necessary tests, which are based on DNA research, they manifestly cannot be designed that would refute the historicity of the Book of Mormon. In our current state, now these are two scientists, folks, in our current state of knowledge and understanding, there are some tests at this point that we simply can't perform. We have to come to grips with this before we go off touting like Thomas Murphy does that we have a serious problem. No, we don't. We are exploring. In some instances, we are discovering. In other instances, we're not discovering things. One thing the DNA science does not do, because it simply cannot do at this point, it does not refute the Book of Mormon. That argument that DNA has proven the Book of Mormon false, that argument itself is simply false.